good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, and today's webinar has a lot of news for you and a lot of information to actually digest. So be patient with us and try to stay focused as much as possible because I know it's a lot of information and we will try to simplify it as much as possible. But before we start, we will kick off the webinar with a video of our facilities. So while we're waiting for everybody to join, so enjoy the video. So based on that, today what we're going to be discussing is I'm going to go first to discuss an overview of the NDECC exam and the changes that actually have taken place. Then we will focus on some statistics, NDECC statistics, and the importance of those statistics that helped us to arrive with a roadmap. Dr. Ban and Dr. Fursan will be discussing those. And then we will highlight the financial support programs that we are establishing at Prep Doctors. And we will conclude with the Dr. Luca to inform us about the last updates regarding the meeting they had with the NDEB. So to start off with the NDECC exam, actually, the major change that led to all of this confusion now in the market is that before COVID, this exam used to be a single exam of skills assessment. And that exam actually was structured very similar to one of the components of the NDECC. Before COVID, it was 2 days. Now it became 1 day of the 2 days. And before COVID, there was a lot of positive, I would say, attributes to the exam compared to after COVID, such as that you were allowed to fail a project in that exam. Also, you were allowed to go to Ottawa to see your work after you conduct the exam. You were allowed to get a detailed report of why you did not pass or why you passed this exam. So the transparency level of that exam was much higher. Starting 2022, there was an announcement by NDB that took place that they're going to be switching to the NDECC exam. So they actually included an additional exam. So it's not the exam was modified, it was an additional exam. So they have cut the skills exam into 1 day, and there's 8 projects to be performed on that day, and they have removed the chance of failure. So no failure is allowed, meaning that when you go to the exam, you have to actually pass all of the 8 projects in order to pass that exam. And they added a second day of a situational judgment component, which is an exam of a different nature, where you have to actually interact with actors and you have to go through role play stations along with written stations. This exam tests you on 5 competencies, and those 5 competencies are tested twice. Each of them is tested twice, so you have 10 stations, each testing, each 2 of the 10 is testing a competency. So that's the new change that took place. Now, this change actually is not as bad as the fact that after you take the exam, you are now no longer informed with a detailed report of why you failed or the results. They don't give you a detailed report. They don't tell you what happened. They're just going to give you a very simple result, pass or fail. And then they leave you wondering on why you failed, or even those who passed, why they passed. And it became chaos. So when we entered into that phase, actually, it was a very a scary phase, and it started towards the end of 2022. And since that time, we were trying to advise people that be careful, because the transition periods are usually very scary, because that's when people are learning. And then a lot of rumors were being spread out that, oh, it's going to be easy, we can go right away. There was also an issue of booking the exam because of the backlog. So people were just jumping to book seats without being prepared. And that led to a huge chaos in the first couple of cycles. Now we have arrived at a period actually that there's already 3 cycles of NDEB, NDECC exams results that have been released. And the majority of the candidates actually who went to those exams, they are through Prep Doctors. So the majority of the candidates who attempted those exams, they took courses with us. And we have actually conducted very heavy surveys and research in order to arrive at a formula, because we want to actually guide people to be able to find a way to know when they are ready for the exam, and how to succeed in this exam, and at the same time to manage their finances, and at the same time to do it in the shortest period of time possible, because people are rushing and everybody wants to finish as quick as possible, but we want to find out what's the shortest period possible for people to be able to actually complete this exam. Now, looking at the statistics of NDEB results, so this is actually not 3 cycles, because NDEB have not released a 3rd cycle yet, but this is based on the 2 cycles that took place in 2022. What you notice is that there's 379 candidates that attempted the exams, 40% passed the skills component alone, 43% passed the situational judgment alone, and what made it more difficult now for people to clear it from one shot is they have to pass both components together. So that dropped to 16%. And as I mentioned, the majority of these candidates actually, they were from prep doctors. However, just to highlight a couple of the things that we actually struggled with in the first phases is that the level of guidance we're trying to give the people was not actually well comprehended, and this is understood because we are in a chaotic transition phase. So we felt that there is actually a significant portion of people who rush to the exam at this phase. Also, what we noticed that people were exhausting their financial resources quite rapidly when it came to this. One of the reasons is because the exam itself to book is expensive, preparation is expensive, material is expensive, and every failure is going to exponentially increase your financial demands. So when we looked at all of these factors, we were conducting, as I mentioned before, heavy surveys in order to actually come up with a road plan, a roadmap for people to follow, to be able to say, okay, if I follow these steps, then I have this much chance of actually clearing the exam. And this is based on heavy statistics that we conducted on a pool of 348 trainees who actually responded to our result surveys in the last 3 NDEB cycles. So the last 3 cycles where results were released, 348 trainees responded to our surveys. Now, to break it down, to break the results, out of 348, we have 266 trainees. They managed to pass at least one of the components. So we're looking at a percentage of 76%. So they either passed situational or they passed skills. We have 220 trainees. They passed a situational judgment, which is a 63%, and we are actually proud of this percentage. Now, just to note that the pattern was not consistent because the first cycle it was good, second cycle it dropped, the third cycle it picked up again. So there was up and down in the passing, but this is a cumulative result. And looking at the skills component, which is now what's scaring people the most, we had 169 trainees who passed skills, and this is a 48%. So as a percentage, this is not a bad percentage. It beats the NDEB percentage, but still we are actually not very happy that the percentages are low. And that's why when we looked at the statistics, we are trying to find out what type of candidates actually managed to pass these exams and what's the best way to actually tackle this exam in order to maximize your chances to pass the exam. Now, looking at candidates who passed both components, we had 64 candidates, which is around 18%. But when we did our analysis, we always look at how prepared were the candidates to go to the exam versus the result. The fair way to actually look at it, because when people come to prep doctors, they trust prep doctors. So we always get some candidates, they ask us, okay, give me a way for me to know that if I go to the exam, I have a good chance to actually pass the exam. And that way actually is clearly outlined by the statistics. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna take a closer look at the 169 candidates who passed the skills versus those who actually failed the skills. So if we actually look at the 169 trainees who passed the skills and we look at their training. Now at prep doctors here, since the NDEB moved to the new NDECC examination, the exam was actually now open to be administered anytime throughout the year. So we lost the rhythmic cycle of twice a year. Before, skills was actually conducted twice a year. So people automatically signed up for 6 months training, and that was actually synchronized by NDEB because it was twice a year. So the minimum people actually trained at that time was 6 months plus easily. Now, the minute the NDEB, they opened this unlimited anytime booking, people started to rush. So we have now a set of trainees who actually, they took 6 month plus training, so more or equal to 6 months of training. And we have trainees actually who took 3 months and even less. So they actually just came, barely took a course and went to the exam. So out of those who actually passed, the 169 trainees who passed, we looked at how many of them at prep doctors actually trained for 6 or more months. And the percentages actually shifted dramatically. So we have 92%, 156 candidates of those who passed had 6 months training plus. And those who had 3 months training, 13%. Now, I have to be clear here, because when we recommend to people, please train more, please take 6 month plus training, the idea is not to trap you here for more time. But when we come to the roadmap, you're going to understand that by the time you actually finish the 3 months, you're barely learning. So you didn't even have time to practice and to reach a level of consistency. And that clearly is demonstrated here. And this is also to speak out that, can people with 3 months training pass the exam? Yes, 7% chance. You have it, the percentage speaks, 7 to 8% versus 92%. And then we added another factor, because everybody who goes through prep doctors, at the end of the day, they go through our mock exams. And our mock exams are actually all archived, and we have all the results. So we pulled all the archives to see those who passed, how did they actually perform in the mock exams. Now, one of the criticism that we used to get at prep doctors from candidates is that our mock exams are actually very strict. We are strict in evaluation. And this is something that we are proud of, because to be strict here is to make sure that you actually will have a better chance to pass your exam. So out of the 169 trainees, we had 162 trainees, they scored adequately in prep doctors. And why we're using adequately, this term, not scored excellent? Because we noticed when we are strict in evaluation, we barely get people to actually pass our mock exams. Not many people reach that level of being able to pass easily our mock exams because of the strictness. So we went back and we looked, okay, those who passed, and we separated them into two pools. How many of them, when they did our mock exams, they were able to pass 6 out of the 8 projects. So they failed only 1 to 2. And how many of them failed more than 2? And again, the percentages started to show even clearer evidence. 162 out of the 169, which is 96% almost, they actually did well in the mock exams, meaning they were able to pass 6 out of 8 plus projects. And 7%, they actually were not performing well, so they were failing 3 plus projects in our mock exams. So the reason I'm showing you these statistics, because based on this, we will be talking later on, Dr. Ban will be talking about the roadmap. So this is a clear view of those who passed. Now let's look at those who failed, the other side of the story, which is the 177 trainees on the other end of the spectrum. When we look at those, we find that 107 of those trainees were 3 months and less. So that's 60%. And this pattern is going down nowadays, because people automatically are realizing that they need actually more training. But we have 107 candidates, they trained for 3 months or less, and 70 trained for 6 months. So again, to show you that 6 months and more, you're not guaranteed a pass, but the probability of passing is higher. And then when we looked at the mock exam performance for those who actually failed, we found that 35 of them actually did adequately in our mock exam. So they failed only 1 to 2 projects, which is around 20%. So if we actually look at those who performed well in our mock exams, the 35 plus the 162 from those who passed, and we look at the percentage of those who did well in mock exams and they ended up clearing the exam, we find that the percentage of those who did well in the mock exams and passed alone as a factor is 82.23%. So now, looking at this, if we take the lower percentage, I'm not going to go and look at the higher percentage, which is the 95% and the 92%. If we took the lower percentage and we intersect the data that we have, then we can have a very clear formula that can answer people's question. The majority of people who passed the exam, they took training of 6 months plus, and they scored adequately in the mock exam. They were able to actually score in the mock exams to pass 6 projects plus in our mock exams. So now when someone comes and asks me, he says, what's my chances to pass? That's the answer. How much training did you invest? And what was your performance in the mock exams? If you say you invested enough time, 6 months plus, and you actually scored well in the mock exam, and look at the criteria we're putting here is not we want you to pass all the time, because this is actually an impossible criteria to achieve. We know that in the clinical skills, there's consistency, there are bad days that people go through. So if you actually are able to pass 6+ projects in the mock exams and train well, and we're not saying train for 2 years or 15 months or 12 months, we're talking about 6 to 7 months for the majority of the candidates, the probability of passing the exam goes up to 82.23%. And this is actually a good percentage. However, we still like to be above the 90, so that's why we are still watching out for the surveys that are coming in order to fine-tune our criteria so that we can push this to above the 90 and people will be in a comfortable zone. So this is talking about actually the skills. The skills is the tougher component. What people actually don't recognize and they fail to actually acknowledge is that the problem with this exam, the clinical skills, is that it actually did not, the NDB did not drop the passing rate. That's not the problem. The problem is that they removed the ability to fail one project, and that results in a very significant change in the overall performance. So people need to be actually aware that this exam needs a lot of training now. You're not allowed to make a single mistake. That's how strict this exam is. So back in the days, as I mentioned, people used to train for 6 months and they were allowed to make mistakes. So you can imagine now that you're not allowed to make mistakes, how much more effort you have to put into it. Plus the fact that you're actually going to go to situational judgment, you have a second exam you're going to actually do at the same time. So your preparation now and your focus is not 100% to skills all the time. It's going to actually be divided between two components, between the situational judgment and the skills. And some of the days at Prep Doctor, you'll be spending from morning till evening training in Prep Doctors. So, however, the good news about the situational judgment is that you don't have to pass all the 10 stations. You have to pass 6 out of the 10 stations, and you cannot fail any of the competencies fully, meaning you have to pass at least 1 out of the 2 in each of the 5 competencies. And we have done well. We are very proud with the course that we have constructed before the exam. Our predictions came very strong. The exam was actually similar to what we actually predicted before. We have constructed a nice exam with a practice section. And we have found actually, when we looked at the statistics, because this course actually has 2 components, a lecture component and a problem-based learning section in the beginning where you learn material for 3 months, and then a practice component where you actually practice for another 12 months. So we also noticed that if we look at the candidates who only took the course alone and went to the exam versus who took the course with the practice and went to the exam, so we found that out of those who passed situational judgment, which is 220 trainees, 199, which is 90%, took the course plus the practice, at least 8 to 12 weeks of practice with us. So the formula actually for the situational judgment, we are very comfortable with this exam. Now we can easily guide and advise people on what to do. So we have no issues with this one. We're still fine-tuning the skills, but we have arrived at a very nice roadmap. At least you will have a probability of over 80% to pass that exam. So now I will actually leave it to Dr. Ban. She will talk about the clinical skills and the roadmap that has been developed for this course in order to help you plan ahead for your future.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Marwan. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to talk about the clinical skills component of the NDECC exam. It's basically the practical part of this exam. So I'm going to talk about the structure of the course that we have. We have actually full hours of daily access to the lab, and we made that on purpose, 8 hours of training every day, because this is the time that you're going to be spending in the real exam. So we want that to be the same in order to perform. Once you reach the mock level, you can practice within the same time that you will be taking the exam at the NDEB facility. And this is like the access will be 6 days a week. You will have that access. And we have on Sundays, we have lectures. Every Sunday we will be learning a new topic. It's actually 8 projects. So every week we will be having lectures plus other lectures, like we have conclusion, we have walk through the exam lectures throughout. This is the cycle of, I'm talking about 12 weeks cycle. So we will be having those lectures on Sundays. We have also access to ADEC simulators. And we are working to having our labs. They are all like having all ADEC units. So for now, we have in Vancouver, it's fully ADEC. In Richmond Hill, it's 1-to-1, meaning one ADEC unit versus one non-ADEC. So you will have the chance to be trained, like you train yourself, like you practice on ADEC unit every other day. Mississauga also, we are soon getting more ADEC units. There is backlog, but we are also planning to move fully to ADEC units. And the new center in Montreal also will be fully ADEC unit. That will be hopefully early by August.
Hopefully
Yeah.
August.
Now, also, we have access to on-demand demo lectures, recorded demos and lectures, and this is through tablets. You will have, everybody will have tablet in the lab. I think we installed them already.
Yeah, they're already installed.
So, yeah, and we have also...
Can I just comment on this? The tablets actually was based on a survey, because people before, they used to go to the computer lab to watch and then go to implement. So now people said, if we can have tablets, so that as we're watching the demos, we can stop and implement. So every station will has a tablet right now.
Exactly. And there is also, like, you can watch at your own time in the computer lab. We have also manuals, clinical skills procedures manuals, plus exercise booklet. Once you reach to a level, that will guide you to do mock exams. I'm going to talk about mock exams in details. And we have twice a week, we have work check with instructors. The work check session is 40 minutes twice a week. We have also lab support days 2 times a week. We have also a weekly live demo in the lab. And we have also like committees that are closely monitoring your progress, and there are progress report issued every work check once you reach to that level, in order to follow up with your progress. So looking to a calendar, this is an example of a calendar for a trainee who's taking, for example, morning session. So the morning session starts at 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's 8 hours of practice. So on Monday, for example, this is from Mississauga location. On Monday, you have, for example, you come to your session, you have 8 hours of practice on that day, every day actually. And you will be having, during that 8 hours, you have 40 minutes one-on-one to get your work checked with the instructors. On Tuesday, there will be instructors on floor in the lab to support you if you have any issues with your work. On Wednesday, there will be, it's the demo day, it's live demo. The instructor will be in the lab giving demo, and you can interact with the instructor. It's live demo. Plus, there are recorded ones you can access anytime. We have on Thursday, again, it's work check day, meaning you will have another 40 minutes one-on-one with the instructor to check your work and see your progress. And on Friday, there is another day with instructor on floor, like in the lab, to support you if you have any issue. On Saturday, you will be practicing at your own. It's 8 hours again. And on Sunday, there's no lab. There will be online lecture, live lecture from 11 a.m. to 1 or 2 p.m. So this is like example of,
Yes.
yeah.
Before you move on to the roadmap, I just want people to focus on the work check sessions, those 2 days. They vary from one center to another, but those are actually the 2 days where you will be actually monitored. So whatever you actually, when we go to that, when Dr. Ban explains the roadmap, those 2 sessions is the days you will present your work to be evaluated, documented, and monitored. So you have twice a week where you get monitored. throughout the month. So that's like in 4 weeks, we can say there's 8 sessions where you have to show work, and the work that you show is going to be evaluated and documented.
Exactly, yeah. Now, if you were an ACJ candidate awaiting the result, or you already finished your ACJ exam, so this is a roadmap for you to prepare for the next step. First of all, focus on to familiarize yourself with the clinical skills exam. Now, forget the situational judgment, focus on the clinical skills part. Meaning, it's good, like during that time, we're waiting for your result to complete. For example, you will need loops for the exam. So complete the loop measurements and don't place the order, like just have them on standby. And once the result comes out for the ACJ and you pass the result, place the order of the loops immediately and book your NDECC roadmap package. I'll explain that package for you.
Also, they can familiarize themselves with the criteria, with the material they need to order, just like prepare yourself just to learn more about the read the protocol from NDEB website as well.
Okay, now as a roadmap from day one, we said this is that the course is 12 weeks, and this is a roadmap for the first. I'm talking about from day one to end of second month. In this phase, I will summarize the phases. We have learning phase. In learning phase, you will learn the criteria. So every week we have a new project. You will learn the criteria. I know we all like graduated from dental schools, we drill teeth, we do fillings, but you have to learn the how to do like ideal preparation according to NDEB criteria. So every week we will be learning a new topic, a new project like class 2, amalgam filling, composite, and so forth. So during the first 2 months, we will be taking these projects. They are 8 projects. So we will talk about 7 because actually you will be performing work on 7 projects, and the 8th one is infection control, meaning when you do your exam, you will be monitored throughout the exam in terms of infection control protocol. So from day 1 to end of second month, this is a learning phase. And actually, we are not expecting too much from you. You're just learning the criteria. Every week, a new criteria with a new project.
And they're not evaluated in that phase.
Yeah, but we have work check.
But I mean, they're not.
Exactly. We will have that work check twice a week, but as a progress, it haven't started yet. The progress will be monitored after the second month. Once third month starts, we will be like you will start after learning the criteria, working on individual project. So learning and then individual project. Individual project here, you will have to work on like the projects themselves, and you have to be able to pass in that cycle. You have to be able to pass at least 50% of the projects, meaning I'll explain that, because we have the learning, then individual project, and then we have mock cycle. The mock cycle, like simply, it's here you're going to encounter a third, like another factor, which is the time. You have to monitor yourself. You have to perform all the projects in one day within time frame of 8 hours, similar to the real exam. So in the beginning, learning phase, then individual project, you are not taking into account the time. You are just mastering the criteria in that phase. So after so you have the third month to work on individual projects, and you have in that month 8 work checks, 4 weeks, so 8 work check. So and end of this month you will be sitting with the committee, your committee, the instructors that were evaluating you during that month, and you will have your first meeting with them. You will get a progress report discussion. According to the results, according to your progress, they will tell you either you continue with the individual project phase, meaning you should achieve 50% out of 7 projects. So if you are performing 7 projects, you should pass, for example, class 2. If you are performing class 2 8 times, because this is 8 work check, so you should pass at least 4 times in class 2 out of the 8 work checks. And this applies to the 7 projects you are practicing. So they will tell you after the 3rd month whether you should continue with that phase of working on individual project, or if you if you are in a position you passed more than half of the projects, then you move to the mock phase, meaning you achieved at least you evaluated 8 class 2s, for example, 4 of them passed. And this applies for the 7 project. Then you will move to the next phase, which is the mock training. Do you want to add anything?
No, you can finish and then we
Okay.
can summarize for them. It's a lot of information, that's
I
why.
know.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Now, after 4th month, because our recommendation is 6 months of practice minimum. So after 4th month, you will have another meeting with the committee. And here also, they will be giving you your progress report.
this committee will be different than the first one.
Exactly. Every month you have different committee. So they will monitor your progress. If you are still working on individual projects, you didn't manage to pass at least the 50%, you have to continue working on individual projects. If you are good to go with the mocks, then you will have they will see your performance with the mocks. So if you achieve 50% out of the 7 projects you passed, then they will tell you book your exam in 3 months. So I think it's too much. I'm overwhelming them with too much information.
Finish it. Yeah, and then, yeah.
And then book your exam in 3 months if you passed 4 project minimum out of the 7 projects in 4 mocks of the 8 mocks, because you have a month of training. You are supposed to perform 8 mocks. You have 2 mocks per week to submit to your instructors. In case that you are at level, you manage to pass 4 projects in 4 out of 8 mocks, you are now at level. We tell you, okay, you can book your exam in 3 months, meaning you have to continue 2 months of training plus 1 month training in our mock center, taking our mocks. This is the map. I think I tried to simplify, but if you want to add.
I'll just do a quick summary for people just to understand what's the idea here, because when people actually go through the clinical skills, they're lost. Like the first 2 months, they are lost. They need a lot of support on the floor. This is where the support instructors come into play to help them out. And they're learning at a fast pace. So they're taking one project after the other. So they don't have time to actually absorb the first one by the time they're bombarded with the second one. Now, what people actually try to achieve is once they learn everything, we have noticed a pattern, is that people, they jump right away, they want to do everything together. And when they want to do everything together, they end up failing everything, because the learning curve is going to be so slow. But if you break it into bits and pieces, then it will accelerate the learning curve. So that's why phase 1 is learning. Here, just try to get the criteria in place. Exactly. Phase 2 is individual projects. We're not going to push people to do mocks yet. First, you have to prove to yourself that I am able to pass each project individually, and I have reached a consistency of 50%. Why are we demanding 50%? So that if you perform one project, you have a chance 50-50 to pass or fail it. So once you hit that level, then you start to build your stamina and put time into it. Now you start to combine everything together. And that's the phase that's going to come after it.
That's the more.
And by having these checkpoints for every individual, you have something to look forward to, and you have a plan. And when you focus on a target, when your target is, I'm going to just pass 50%, is not the same as from the beginning saying, I'm going to pass 100% in a mock setting. That will keep dragging forever, and your confidence will also be affected. So once you enter the mock phase, now here to get to the phase where we say, okay, now you have a chance to book your actual exam, you need to be able to also pass more than 50% of the mocks. Now, I know the details will be more clear to you
Yeah.
once you start the course, but once you hit that point, that means I am able to pass each project alone. I am able to achieve 50% passing in the mocks. Now is the time to book my exam 3 months afterwards so that I have 2 months to work on my consistency and I will build it slowly to pass all the projects. And then, of course, people will have the last month where they will do our prep doctor mock exams. So this roadmap is actually monitored by committees. Every month, there will be 3 instructors following you, and all your results will be documented. And those documented results and reports will be passed to the next committee. Why do we have this system? To allow for consistency and tracking. You will be able to see how yourself is performing, and you yourself will work towards your targets. And this will actually accelerate your performance so that by the time you actually reach the end of the 6 month, we don't want to get to a point where we tell people, oh, you need to extend, which can happen. We want people, when they have targets, to hopefully the majority of people, by the time they get to the fourth, fifth months, they have a clear vision. Okay, now I'm ready to go book my exam with confidence.
Now, just I want to add something, like maybe people might asking why we have to practice in a mock session, like setting, because you have to build the stamina, like because you have
Yeah.
a limited time, you have 8 hours, you have to complete all the projects in your real exam. So you have to build that stamina, you have to monitor, there is time factor, and there is like the stamina itself, you have to build it. When you practice the mocks within certain time, you will see also there is a drop when
Yeah, it's
you,
fatigue,
yeah,
fatigue because,
exactly. So
yeah.
that's why you have to practice in that setting, mock, you do mocks. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's to build it, it's like working out.
exactly.
Because when people do the projects alone, they pass. But usually when they do all the 7 together, the last 2 in the day, they get tired. So their focus goes down and their stamina
Exactly, yeah.
goes down. Okay, we'll move on to Dr. Farsan to speak about the situational judgment.
Hello everyone. So I'm gonna be speaking about the situation. It's very short because technically the situation doesn't have that much of complications that, as Dr. Dan and Dr. Marwan were mentioning regarding the skills. So regarding the situational judgment, the course now is based on like 12 plus lectures. You're gonna have them in every Wednesday. In those lectures, we will include learning sessions. We will have also practice sessions for the first people or for the first course or for regular course in general. It will be over 12 weeks. Within those, we will be covering the 5 competencies, and in each session, we will touch upon one topic or at least per competency. We will be discussing the most, I would say, hot topics or the most important topics in general. And every lecture, we try as much as we can not to make it, I would say, boring. We try to engage you as much as we can. In the same time, you get to know a bit or a piece from each competency. So by the end of those 12 weeks, you will have a good understanding or a good even knowledge or enough knowledge to be able to cover these 5 competencies. Those also include and will also include some special topics. We do those usually to boost and to increase the learning. It goes for these topics where some people need to be having some to have some refresh information regarding it. Maybe that information was already given to you through during your preparation for ACJ or for AFK. As well as we will have an access, you will have an access to all of these lectures as all of these like material as a replays. Whenever you feel you wanna watch them again, you will be able to add it to that, which is something we already got a lot of hype since we already implemented. Regarding the situational judgment demo, it was an idea. We started it around like a bit more than a month ago, and we started recording these encounters and to see like an actor and a doctor to talk to each other regarding certain case or certain scenarios within those 5 competencies. We've seen a lot of hype regarding that, and also we have done 2 updates so far. So the amount of videos we have, it's around 33 or 32 videos up to this moment. I think even if you did not check, you will go and check, you will find them also updated. We will keep on updating those things, and I will add another thing which is not mentioned in the slides here. We also starting to work on a new ways to help you doing also the written, because the situational judgment demos as of now, they are regarding the role plays, And for the written, many people they are asking us, and we are trying to find, kind of maybe a video demonstration, a small discussion regarding how to implement or how to start your writing when it comes to those station as well. That will be up hopefully as soon as we will get it. So stay tuned for that. And also, after you finish the 12 weeks, which is basically all of these lectures covering the five competencies, we always would suggest to take another 12 weeks or up to 12 weeks of mini mocks. Those 12, mini mocks, they will have at least 60 plus cases. They will be covering role plays, written stations. You will have, or how it will goes usually, it will be one day you will come, you will take five stations. Sometimes there are two role plays and three written. Sometimes there are three role plays and two returns. They will go consecutively. So every week you will get one complete mark. And after that, you will have a session to discuss all of those. Sometimes we will present some of the responses from you guys, and we keep, as I mentioned, like answering questions, clarifying situations, and going with whatever you guys wanted to know or wanted to learn. So in total, we will have a huge amount. You will have a huge amount of problem-based cases that they will already been solved, or you will have an idea about how to solve them, or you will get an idea how to build that answer as well. So hopefully, successfully, you will be passing the projects. Now, I just want to go over how weekly, because some people or most of the candidates we have here, or many of them, they're already taking the situational judgment with the clinical course. So I'm gonna kind of overlap the course, the situational courses days and the sessions with the skills, and so you can see how the day will go. So Dr. Ban already represented the schedule first, and I will be talking about those the highlight the point that highlighted in yellow and blue or turquoise. So basically, when we look at Mondays, if you are taking, or let's start by the regular course on Mondays, not every Monday, every other Monday, we will have a special topic that we'll be talking about. If you are in the morning session, so this is basically a trainee who is in the morning session in Mississauga as of now. If you are in the
Morning
afternoon,
session for skills.
yeah, morning session for skills. If you are in the afternoon, it will be flipped. So your sessions for the NDECC situational judgment course will be in the morning, and your core skills will be in the afternoon, which will be from 3 to 10, 3 to 9.
2 to 10.
Sorry, 2 to 10. So basically, you will either start your day when we have a situational judgment as a situational judgment if you are in the afternoon skills course, or as we mentioned in the table in front of your eyes right now, this is for the morning clinical skills trainee. So they will start their lectures in Monday from 3 to 6 after they finish their training for the skills, and also they will have the regular Wednesday lectures from 3 to 6 as well. Now, if you are continuing with us and you start to take those mini mock courses, you will have to be here for 2 days. The first one will be on Tuesday, and again, we will make sure that you will be in the afternoon session, so it does not have any conflict with your regular practice if you are in the morning, as we mentioned, or as we have the example. And then the discussion will be also in the afternoon from 3 to 5:30. Sometimes it goes up to 6 to discuss those five stations, and from there we will be accommodating as much as we can with your timing, making sure to get your day as beneficial as possible. For that reason, you have to have that clear mind that this is a full-time job generally when you are doing those both courses together. And of course, unfortunately, you cannot take one by one. You have to take, especially for the first time, you have to take both of them together. And like, I'm not a fan of those, because I start to see or hearing these voices saying, you know what, I'm going to be focusing on one and leave the other, do it, pass it, and then I will take care of the next one. But at the end of the day, why not to pass both of them together? Put yourself and your effort in those 6 months and move on for that. Now, regarding the roadmap, again, it's very simple. It's not going to be that much hard. After you finish your ACJ, of course, you're going to be waiting for your ACJ result. Dr. Ban talked about what you should do for the NDECC. For the situational, I would say wait until we start the courses, because to be honest, there is not much you really need to work on in general to prepare for, because we will be starting. Up to now, we are still handing out in every lecture what you will be having. Why we are still doing that? Because we are still updating our courses on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. Sometimes we do changes, updates. We see things that need to be maybe discussed. Eventually, or soon we will have like a booklet. It's gonna be just a complete booklet with all of these topics into them. After you pass your ACJ, and hopefully you will successfully pass it, you will start with the roadmap package, which is basically you're going to be taking this clinical skills with the situational judgment course. And the situational judgment, the first one, it will be finished by 12 weeks, and then after that we would suggest taking the mini mocks also for 12 weeks. It's very much pretty much
Yeah.
straightforward. It's not as complicated as the skills, but at the end of the day, again, it is not that hard of an exam, I would say. Still, it's easy to pass, but still, there's some people who are failing it. We want to minimize this as much as we can. In the last result, we had a huge success, I would say,
Yeah.
and we're still going to build on that and improve it even more.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Farsan.
Wow.
Okay, so now moving on to the last section before we move on to Dr. Luca, which is now, as Dr. Farsan mentioned, in the last situational, we had good success. And again, this is all thanks to people who trusted our roadmap and they believed in it and they actually followed the advice. And it is important to understand that when we are trying to give the advice, we want people to stick to it so that they don't linger in the process. Because we have noticed, and it's very painful to see candidates who try to take shortcuts and then they are faced with a failure and a trauma, and then they have to come back, take another course, their confidence is affected, and so forth. So please do your best to follow the roadmap so that you can clear it from the first time and you don't have to run into negativity in this process. Now, what we actually noticed is, as we were speaking to candidates and conducting our surveys, is that one of the main challenges in this phase is finances, because when you actually look at the exam itself is $9,000. And if we're telling people to follow our roadmap is pretty much an intense 6 months training. It's 6 months training of skills and 6 months training of situational judgment. Plus they're gonna take another month that's like a pre-exam month, plus there's mock exams to actually be covered. So when you look at the total cost, including HST, it looks like it's a huge amount, which is $26,550. So this is a huge number that people look at and they say, okay, maybe I'll try to save here and there. And what happens when they do that? This is when they start to actually, it becomes more chaotic and they lose trackability and they lose focus. So we do recognize that the financial is actually a main challenge for people. And that was actually in the last board meeting, this was raised. I raised it to the board because we said we have to do something about the finances for people. They are struggling with the cash flow, and we get candidates that come to us and they say after they lose their first attempt, they say we're broke. We have no money to do anything, and they're trying to train, half training at home, trying to gather info from here and there. And this is actually a sad reality. So what we're trying to actually advise candidates here is we have two components to actually deliver help to the candidates. Number one, we have a clear roadmap that is formulated based on solid statistics of a large enough sample to advise you what's the best way to proceed in training for these courses and for these exams. And as I mentioned before, the package actually is around 26,550. So if someone decides to actually come to the roadmap of prep doctors, automatically we do the bundle discount so they get the package for 24,000. But we have great news for you. So from now on, this is actually to ACJ candidates and to NDECC candidates who unfortunately failed or and they want to join or rejoin, whether they were with us or not. We will be able actually to provide this package for you for a period of 18 months, zero interest payment plan. And the reason here I'm talking about finances because I came to know after interacting with candidates how difficult it is. Now, everybody is aware that there is the CIBC line of credit that people have access to. So after they pass ACJ, there's another 50,000 that opens up. Before ACJ, there is, after they pass AFK 35. This is a good amount of money to have access to, but unfortunately, we are seeing people exhausting this amount. Like it's building up so fast, especially when they are not planning well. And we all know that fail to plan is plan to fail. So there's no plan. They're just randomly going after products and trying to take shortcuts. All of a sudden, they find themselves behind on time schedule. Their line of credit is exhausted, and they cannot do anything. So what we're saying here is we're saying when you want to take the roadmap package, there's no reason for you to actually pull from the line of credit right away because it's high interest to begin with, very high interest nowadays. And you can actually get an 18-month payment plan from Prep Doctors with zero interest. So that's for the first package. This is given that you stick to the roadmap. Now, as you go through the roadmap, as we said, there are checkpoints that we are actually going to have. And the checkpoints are based on the committee meetings and recommendations. So you're going to end up most likely in one of two scenarios. Either you will have to do slight extension in the roadmap if you are behind on schedule, because we have to agree that people, they don't have the same skill. Some people, it takes them longer to build the skill for the criteria. Some people, they are faster. So if you end up falling behind, and or if you happen to be a candidate who actually followed the roadmap, you were given the recommendation to go, you were doing amazing, still remember the passing probability is 82%, so you still have that 18% chance, God forbid, of not making it. We are still committed to you because all you need after that is fine tuning. So you will have an additional access in phase 2 to $10,000 with zero interest payment plan again. So you have here now an access to up to $34,000. This is from Prep Doctors at zero interest offered to the candidates, so that when you start the roadmap package, you're not under a lot of pressure. You're pulling a huge amount to invest. You're just paying a monthly payment of 1,300 something, and you're paying it every month as you go along. You have your CIBC line of credit as a backup. You can, because people need to survive as well. They have rent, they have commitments, they have other stuff. So hopefully with these combined, we increase your access to funds. We minimize the damages of the interest that is being put on people with the high inflation rate that we have now and the high interest rate. And it will help ease your finances so you can focus on the roadmap and clear this exam from one time. Now, I know that the pool that is attending with us today, there's two kind of people. So we have people who are waiting for ACJ results. There will be an event that is going to be actually announced on social media. So please join our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and so forth, and stay tuned. We will announce there's going to be an on-site event after the release of ACJ results. And that's the date actually when people come here. That's when we kick off the payment plan program for candidates. So we will be taking your information. And for those actually who fall into the second category, the people who were not successful in the first attempt or the second attempt, feel free to reach out to our client relation department. You can call, and here Rafiq mainly will be taking care of you. I have highlighted the number in red, so take note of that number. You can book a one-to-one consultation, one-on-one consultation, to know what's your plan and to see what's your options so that we can help you out as much as possible. And even if you happen to be an ACJ candidate and you just want to book a one-on-one, you are more than welcome to book with us. We are always here to help and explain these products. I know there's a lot of details today that is extended out, but we're trying actually to race with the development in the process of NDECC, and we're trying to actually come up with something that is solid for candidates so they don't feel as lost as before. They have a plan and they can actually succeed from the first time with the minimum financial damage that they can incur, and with a proper financial and training, proper financial plan and training plan to help them clear with one shot. So I hope this was actually helpful. Now we will move on to the last section actually, because this will tie in with the introduction I made, the lack of transparency that actually candidates encountered from NDECC. So we have Dr. Luca with us, Dr. Luca Salvador. Dr. Luca, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Marwan. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Luca. I'm the founder and president of the Internationally Trained Dentists Association of Canada. And our main objective is to make the equivalency process fair and equitable for internationally trained dentists. And I'm sure, as a lot of you know, there are problems that need to be addressed, but for whatever reason, the NDB is not addressing them. One point that I would like to point out, because I get a lot of feedback from individuals highlighting the stress and mental health issues and financial issues that are plaguing community. The NDEB and the RCDSO, other provincial regulators, they serve the public. They don't serve us. Those emotional appeals don't sit with them. We need to provide rational, evidence-based proposals that they will be willing to accept. And that's what I'm going to go through today, what we proposed and what their response is. And I will go through what our next steps are. So the people present at the meeting on behalf of the organization were myself and Dr. Purnima Ravi. There was a representative from a newcomer organization in Nova Scotia who also happens to be an internationally trained dentist. And on the side of the NDEB, it was their communications manager, Kim Phillips, the executive director, Dr. Desjardins, and their public representative, Jan Shepard Kutcher. My overall opinion of the meeting was I was slightly disappointed because we prepared our points with evidence to support it in detail, and we don't feel that their responses were adequate or evidence-based. And I'll go through it, specifically for the NDECC exam. So for the skills portion of the exam, our first proposal was to allow one failed project. The reason being, this was the previous standard for the ACS for 11 years, and there's thousands of dentists who've entered the market under that passing standard, and there's no evidence to suggest that those dentists pose a danger to the public. If there was evidence, that should exist, and that should be the basis for their decision. The NDEB's response was that that evidence is impossible to collect. A patient doesn't necessarily know what work is being done on them, so it wouldn't necessarily reflect itself in complaints. It seems like the basis for their decision was as part of their standard setting committee meetings. They believe that these are the minimal competencies necessary for a minimally competent dentist to practice in Canada. And they believe that an internationally trained dentist needs to demonstrate all of these competencies. We had pointed out that in theory, that sounds correct, but there are potential issues with the evaluation of the exam, meaning they cannot guarantee with 100% accuracy that the evaluators are not making mistakes because the criteria is so subjective, and we can go into examples of that. Their response was that there is a margin of error within the criteria and that their exam is robust and sound, meaning they do not acknowledge any potential issues with the evaluation. The public representative stated that it may be an issue in the appearance to the public that they're allowing candidates to fail a project. So in terms of us pushing this forward, although we believe we have a reasonable argument, this may be one that's difficult to win with the NDEB, which goes to what our next proposal was, which was to only require candidates to repeat failed projects. This would solve the problem in a similar way to only allowing one failed project, but this was one that the NDEB was more open to. So according to Dr. Desjardins, this is something that they had considered when they were creating the NDECC, but ultimately they decided not to implement it. One, because they believe that these 8 projects, an internationally trained dentist should be able to pass them 100% of the time. And they were advised, although they didn't say by who, that it would be a logistical problem to implement only repeating failed projects. Nonetheless, this is something they said that they would look into implementing, and something that we are going to push them on, because if what we're seeing now, that especially now that the third batch of results have come out, is that there's candidates who failed one project the first time and failed a different project the second time. So this is highly problematic, because this is a vicious cycle that can continue. And it might not necessarily be because of the candidates' problems, it might be because of issues with the evaluation. So we're going to continue to push that, because it is a reasonable solution that fairly easy to implement on their end. Our next proposal was to reintroduce the appeals process. And our reasoning was that, according to their own statistics, there was between a 5 and 20% success rate of appeals for the ACS. And it's documented that they have changed nothing when it comes to the training and calibration of their evaluators. There's no reason to believe that this level of inaccuracy it's still there. So really, there was no justification to remove the appeals process. This is just me speculating. I believe they removed the appeals process because, for logistical reasons. One, because they have to keep typodonts for extended period of time, and it appears that they're reusing them for the exam. And two, that's extra evaluators and staff that they would need for the appeals process. That's why I believe they did it. But anyways, they gave an answer that I believe was inadequate, which is that their exam is robust and doesn't justify the need for an appeals process. I feel like that's going to be one that's going to be difficult to push through, although it's important. But for now, what we're going to try to implement is at least allowing candidates to see their typodonts. Because what we're seeing now is candidates who failed either the same project twice or failed a different project, and they're driving themselves insane because they have no idea what they did wrong. So at least allowing a candidate to see their typodont will give a sense of relief if they can identify, oh, this is what I did wrong. This is what I need to do differently next time. And this is something that should be reasonable for the NDEB to implement going forward. Another thing that we proposed is eliminating cost capping projects, because it's documented, there's evidence to show that there's at least a third of Canadian dental schools that don't evaluate their students on cost capping composites or amalgams. The NDB's response is that they didn't acknowledge that, and that a minimally competent dentist should be able to do these projects. Again, the criteria that we're held to should be based on a minimally competent dentist. So if Canadian graduates aren't being assessed on those skills, why should we? Again, this is something that they would not accept. Overall, for the exam, it appears that there are a significant number of candidates who are passing these projects. So not something necessarily that I think passing repeated, only requiring candidates to pass failed projects is a more important point to get past, but this is something that we'll continue to try and pursue. Another thing was the results. Why does it take so long for the results to come out? So for this exam, they acknowledged that there's no statistical analysis that's done like what is done for the AFK or ACJ. The reason why it takes so long for the results to come out is because of technical problems on their end. They said the system that they have in place is problematic in a way that it takes them a significant amount of time to upload the results. They said this is something that they're going to work on going forward, but it's going to take some time. So that's why it takes 8 weeks after our typodonts are evaluated for the results to come out. And then when it comes to releasing the grading, of the exam, like was done previously for the ACS, their response was that what they're doing is in line with other testing agencies. Our response was that it's a best practice that they were doing. It's above and beyond what other testing agencies were doing, so they should continue to do that. But again, they didn't provide an adequate response, in my opinion. So if it's a technical problem, that is the reason why they're not doing it. I think that's something that they should address, because there's really no other good reason why they wouldn't provide deep grading, because it was something good that they were doing. So that was everything for the skills exam. For the situational judgment exam, we had noted that most people who failed situational judgment was because they failed one scenario in a particular requirement. So our request was to remove that. So all you needed to do is pass 6 out of the 10 projects and the candidate passed. And our reasoning was, it's impossible for a candidate to know what requirement they're being evaluated on, because if you look at the ACFD framework, there's a lot of the requirements that overlap. And that may change what the rubric is, which may change what the answer is. Their response was, a candidate should read the question and answer correctly regardless of what requirement they're being evaluated on. The public representative agreed, because she compared it to how the medical OSCE was done, and said they aren't informed of what requirement they're being evaluated for. So unfortunately, that's a difficult one to argue for. And when it comes to the situational judgment exam as a whole, what was being described before, if you prepare adequately, the results are pretty good. So honestly, there's probably not too much that we need to advocate for the situational judgment exam, although there is one point that Dr. Desjardins asked me to inform everyone of. And what she said is that a lot of candidates are failing because they are giving scripted answers, they're not reading the question, and they're making critical errors. So what I want to highlight is, read the question, only answer the given question, and practice, practice, practice. If what they're assessing is your communication skills, not your ability to give a rote, almost memorized answer. So I believe with the proper practice, most people should be able to pass the situational judgment exam as it is. There probably isn't any particular change that we can advocate for it to improve it, other than we're going to request that they give more detailed examples to clarify exactly what it is that they're looking for. I think that will help. Exam seats, this was a problem initially. According to them, this is not going to be a problem going forward. Apparently, the backlog is cleared for the most part. From what we're seeing, most candidates who want a spot are getting a spot for the skills for the NDECC. When we proposed adding additional NDECC sessions, they brought up issues with examiner resources, that the examiners have families and it's hard to get them to come in on weekends or certain weeks. We brought up that, internationally trained dentists have families as well, and they need to get through this process in a reasonable timely fashion. So that's kind of the frustrating part of this discussion. Anyways, it shouldn't be a problem going forward. We're going to continue to monitor it. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Luca. Thank you, and congratulations on passing the NDECC exam. And I just wanted to request from you, because we have a lot of candidates attending with us today, if you can provide them with just some information on how to join your organization, because I think that also will be very helpful for the internationally trained dentist cause in order to improve the process for everyone. So if you can just share that with us, we'll be very thankful.
So you can go to itdaoc.ca. If you go to the website, there's a membership tab, and there's two options. One is a $100 membership option, and the other option, which is called subscriber, it's free. So I understand that a lot of people are going through financial struggles through this process. So if you can afford the $100, great. It helps us out a lot. If not, at least become a subscriber. So we'll be able to contact you via email with updates.
Do you have a payment plan for the $100, Dr. Luca?
Well, actually, so this is my own individual opinion, because this is the first time I'm learning about the financial support program. We've been working with CIBC for over a year, trying to increase their line of credit by over like $25,000 to $50,000, because there's a big problem, and they're unwilling to do it. Essentially, what this financial support program is an increase in that line of credit, because you have access to this with no interest rate, rather than running out of that CIBC line of credit, which once you run out of that, you're going to have a really hard time finding access to other funds. I would suggest that you sign up for this program, because then at least you have an 18-month payment plan. If you pass it the first time, within that 18 months, you'll be working, and then you'll have a way to pay off that plus your line of credit. So I think this is great, what you've put together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Luca.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to ask if there is any questions, if anyone wants to ask anything. We will take like a few questions, and then I think we will conclude.
We can conclude, yeah.
So we have questions regarding what do you mean by two lab supports, Turban?
So there will be instructors in the lab, like physically in the lab, while you're practicing. If you need any help, any question, they will be, you can call them, they will help you. Like this is the lab support, basically. They will help you if you have any issue with your practicing, seating position, anything you want to ask about, they will help you there.
It's not an evaluation day, we would say.
Exactly,
It's
the
more
evaluation is on work check, yeah, days.
It's basically to support. For Dr. Luca, did you give the minute for the meeting or not yet? This is everyone is waiting on. I've been asked this question multiple times.
So we emailed Ms. Phillips. She said that they will be prepared shortly and sent to us. They haven't been sent to me yet. As soon as I have them, I will share them with everyone.
Fair enough, thank you. Is the on-site event after the ECG result only in Mississauga?
It's going to be in Mississauga and the remote centers.
Yeah, we will try to make it also in remote centers, which means almost you're going to be on site in one of
in Montreal, in
locations.
Calgary, and in
Yes.
Vancouver.
Will your Montreal center will be active from August?
Yes,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we are working on that. It will be mostly like done by, ready by August.
by August, yeah.
This is for Omar. Can we have access to the situation judgment video in computer lab as second timers in situational judgment exam in case we are planning to join the mock only?
Okay, so this is a good question, actually. Can you repeat it again, just to make sure
Yes.
I understood it correctly?
So someone failed the exam. He wanted to just take mock exams. He wanted to ask,
Okay.
can he has the
So,
videos?
so
And access to the videos.
well, this is something that's actually, and then there's another question underneath it. I'll answer that as well,
Yeah.
about the 1 to 2 passing for the 1 to 2 failed projects in the
Yes.
skills. So in terms of people who actually take our roadmap package, if you take the roadmap package and God forbid you're not successful, you will have unlimited access to our replays and library until you pass your exam. So you can actually come back and you have the access until you pass the exam in terms of the situational judgment and even the videos for the skills. So this is a commitment from us towards you if you commit to the roadmap. The only thing we want from people is not to just jump without any preparation to the exam, to follow the advice. And if you follow it, we respect that and we will give back and we will be with you until the end. So yes, you will have access. Now the next question, which is about when we did the statistics, we were talking about people who did adequately, they failed 1 to 2 projects, and how come not pass the exams? Well, one of the things that actually we do here at Prep Doctor is we know that we are stricter than NDEB in our evaluation. So this is actually based on statistics that came out by themselves. We didn't actually design it that way. We didn't design that we want people to fail 1 to 2 projects. But when we looked at those who passed and how they performed, we found that this was their overall performance in the exams. Now, we'd rather be strict in the evaluation, and this actually is good news. So if you actually, if you're able to pass our mock exams, then your probability of passing the exam will go up to even above 95. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay, there is a question here. It says, are we going to start practice session for situational judgment in Vancouver? We are actually working on that. I don't have a timeline for it as of now, but you guys follow us in our social. You will know when this is going to start. It's on planning.
And anything new we announce, it's going to be on social media right away.
That's
we
true.
announce it. Yeah.
Students from Montreal, do we have to come to Mississauga to take mock exams? To see your beautiful faces, I would say, fortunately, yes. And up to now, like as of now,
But,
we will be doing the if you wanna do that, like the mock center generally to be here, we can do it. But also with Vancouver, we are doing the mock exam for situational judgment remotely. So we most probably will be also be able to do it with
I think he's talking
with
about skills
Montreal.
as well.
Skills or-
Oh, he's talking about skills. Okay.
Yeah, for both they can do it in the
Yes,
in Montreal.
You
Montreal.
can do it in Montreal as well. It's gonna be kind of an online, not exactly as how it is in in our course here, but
It's very
it will
similar.
be better than nothing, and it is a good, like it's similar to whatever anyone will be taking.
You will
if
be
they are in person.
interacting, doctor, with the actor on through Zoom, but you will be moving from room to another. So you
Exactly.
will be moving around, but you're not gonna see the actor live face to face. You're gonna see them live, in a video conference call kind of situation. The written are the same, so you're not gonna experience any difference. So yes, we are actually, whenever we establish a remote center like in Vancouver and Montreal, we are bringing the full service there. So it will be implemented. And as we said, you don't have to come to Mississauga for the training. You can come to celebrate.
Yeah. Another questions regarding the loops. For the company of the loop, I'm not going to be able to recommend literally 1 or 2 or 3. The only thing I would always suggest, please try to get in contact with those companies we have around. The main companies I've seen people are doing or buying from, usually they are Exam Vision, they're Oroscoptic. We have also Univet. Now, each of them, they has like good things and also some disadvantages when it comes mostly to the support. This is where I most of the time have an issue with, because when you order, they all look nice. See which one will get you the best deal. This is one thing. Second thing, I need prismatic or newer technology when it comes to the lens type, and for the magnification we need 2.5 up to 3.5. I don't want it to be more and less than 2.5. I would say 2.5 is the, like from 2.5 to 3.5, it's actually the magnification we all would be happy with the working with the type dot, because you don't want to be focusing on one tooth, you will be focusing on the
The
tooth
field of
and-
vision,
exactly.
the field of vision will be impacted with too much magnification.
Exactly, the tooth and the adjacent teeth, because it's there is an environment you have to take care around the tooth you are working on. Dr. Luca, there is this one for you also. Of course, like I know the answer for it, but did NDEB say when they might be willing to implement the decision for letting repeat one project?
So if it gets implemented, when it gets implemented, unclear right now. They didn't commit to it. This is something that the board has to agree upon. So I don't want to promise anyone that it will be implemented, and if it is implemented, I can't guarantee when. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for that.
Thank you.
Okay, are we good?
I think that's it. Most of the questions are kind of repeated.
And-
There is one last, but just before, I'm sorry to interrupt. Regarding the report, so progress report for
Yes.
all students, after 12 weeks, do we have do they get a
Yes.
progress report after 12 weeks course?
After
And
12
that's-
weeks, yeah, this is their first
Exactly.
report
The
they will
first
get.
report, yeah.
Because first 2 months you are learning, then you start, get monitored, you will get your first report after the third month, and then after
Every month.
yes, you will get
Onwards.
the progress, yes.
So just to summarize, like when they're in the 6 months training, the first report will be initiated,
After
or you will get after 3 months, but you will get another one after 4, another one
then
after
after
5.
five.
So every month after that, you will be getting a progress report.
And
After
it's
taking the
simply,
first
yeah,
phase.
like it was like confusing, the whole like flow chart, but simply like learning phase, individual projects and then mocks.
Mocks, and then book your exam.
Exactly, and then book your exam. If you manage to pass from phase 2, which is 50%, you pass on individualized, we move to the mocks. And then once you manage to pass with 50%, then we tell you book your exam in 3 months.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the idea is when you're in that phase, your entire focus is to get to the next phase so that you're not distracting yourself. You have a clear target and objective is I want to pass 50% of each of the individualized project. You move to the next phase, you have a new target. So it's in your control, and also you will put the effort to get to that. So that will accelerate the learning curve, as we have seen.
Okay, that's it for today. We would like first to thank Dr. Luca, the beautiful doctor's
Thank you.
here. And if you just as we mentioned, keep in touch with our social media. We always keep updating if there is any like event or if there is an update to anything like you guys are willing or you are interested, and you will find it either on Instagram or on Facebook. Keep those up.
And also, you make sure you note down the number if you want to book a one-on-one consultation in order to understand more about what we talked about today, because it's a lot of information. We will be more than happy to assist you. Thank you everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.